Hey, JT here. In a previous video, I mentioned that I would cover the common sources of stress, and I'd like to do that now. I've divided the sources of stress up into 5 easily digestible categories: acute sources of stress, chronic sources of stress, work-related, school-related, and home-based sources of stress. Now, a lot of these may seem terribly obvious, but sometimes hearing a list of possible stressors can help you pinpoint where the stress in your life is coming from. First, acute sources of stress. Accidents. Now, there are a wide range of accidents. People who can be involved, levels of severity, places where they can occur, but they all have this one thing in common. They evoke an acute stress response. Sudden illnesses. Diagnosis of sudden illnesses are always an acute source of stress. Fears of death and dying, worries about loved ones, financial pressures associated with medical care, pain and fear of pain are all contributors to the acute stress of sudden illness. Job losses, sudden or unexpected job loss, or even the threat of a possible job loss has brought acute stress to many people. Economic crises. An example of an acute economic stressor would be a comfortably retired couple who finds their life savings threatened because of falling investment values. Or a small business owner who sees a huge drop in sales because consumers are cutting back on their spending. Relationship crises are also acute sources of stress. Around half of marriages fail at some point, unfortunately. Usually, one party in the relationship is very surprised and hurt. Acute stress is a possibility in any relationship where one or both parties have made a significant contribution in time, money, or emotional energy. Now let's talk about some chronic sources of stress. Economic burdens are a very common and serious source of chronic stress. Poverty or the threat of poverty is high on the list, but we also experience stress whenever our lifestyle is threatened. Also, if our income cannot support our lifestyle, we come under additional pressure from creditors. Family conflicts. Family conflicts are common sources of stress because family members often feel like they're stuck with one another. When conflict goes unresolved in the family setting, when little irritations fester, when tempers are always simmering just below the boiling point, the chronic stress can take a heavy toll on health and relationships. Toxic relationships are another source of chronic stress. Many of my readers, clients, and friends can relate to this one. If you regularly get battered, emotionally, intellectually, or physically, you're probably in a toxic relationship. Toxic relationships often have strong social or familial ties, and it causes a significant amount of long-term stress. Chronic illness. Just as the unexpected rapid onset of an acute illness causes acute stress, the long-term effects of chronic illness are a chronic stressor. Chronic illness is a drain on emotional energy, a strain on close relationships, it's disruptive to your lifestyle, and it's often psychologically damaging. Incidentally, my personal experience with chronic illness sparked my interest in the stress issue. Now let's talk about some sources of stress at work. I'm just going to run through a list, and you can check them out in greater detail on the website. High demands on the job, ethical dilemmas at work, uncertain employment status, the pace of your career, whether it be too fast or too slow, the physical working environment, and any toxic relationships that you might be in at work. Here's a list of common sources of stress that we often face at school. Now again, these are covered in much greater detail on the website. There is social pressure of all kinds, family pressure both pro-school and anti-school, and of course, the stress caused by academic pressure. Here are some sources of stress that we often experience at home. Parental duties. Now, parenting involves a huge variety of stressful activities. Financial conflicts. Money issues are one of the main causes of family strife. Spousal relationships. With such a strong emotional and physical bond, relationships with spouses are ripe for stress. The physical setting. Home improvement projects, cramped or poor living conditions, noisy traffic outside. These are all sources of stress in the physical home setting. Social and family pressure are also sources of stress in the home. I hope this video gives you some ideas on where the stress in your life might be coming from. My next video will cover the signs and symptoms of stress. This should help you identify the ways that the stressors in your life are impacting you personally.